Today I want to tell you a little story about this shelf sitting right here behind me and how it ties into procrastination. Maybe some tips on how you can overcome procrastination in your life. So we flash back to 2020. COVID was running rampant as well as the entire world was shutting down. Many of us were looking for projects we could do at home. And I had this massive pile of books that were just piling up on the existing bookshelves. So I decided, it was probably time to add another bookshelf to the mix. Went on to Target.com, ordered a shelf that was to my liking, had it delivered here to the house. And then, of course, procrastination already almost instantly started sitting in. So I took it out of the box, put all the pieces here against the wall here in the corner, and then said, you know what, let me just sit down for a couple of minutes, catch up on a little bit of Netflix, check my email. Oh, I got that Zoom call for work. A bunch of excuses started creeping in, and there sat the shelf. Another week went by, there sat the shelf. Got a little bit of motivation and said, man, I'm tired of tripping over all these books, and I really have some stuff that I really want to put on here, but there the pieces sat. And again, I didn't put together the shelf, and it sat. Well, you can probably imagine how this pattern continued as the months went by, the weeks went by, actually years went by. Definitely an extreme example of procrastination, and many of you are going, dude, it's a shelf. It's a very simple, basic shelf. Probably takes a half hour to put together. Even for somebody like myself that's not very handy, still a pretty simple project. How in the world could it have taken 4 years to build this shelf? Well, again, prioritization, things that were of most important in my mind, as well as just flat out procrastination. So I got to a point actually where I said, hey, you're either gonna put this shelf together or it's gonna go in the garbage. I'm gonna take all these pieces that I've unboxed and have been sitting back here behind me for months and years now, and we're just gonna throw it in the dumpster and be done with the project, and at least it won't be sitting around reminding you of yet another unfinished project, which tends to be something that happens to me often. We'll talk more in a future video about being a starter versus being a finisher, and I think I have some great insights for you on that as well. So fast forward, it's now February of 2025. I actually said 2024 in my clip I just edited out, but hard to believe yet another year has passed. And last night, finally, whatever it was that was that final trigger, the shelf got built. And it's funny too, because along the way I thought, man, I had these dreams and aspirations about the shelf. I want to have it as a nice backdrop for these videos. I want to have little trinkets back here that kind of reflect who I am as a person and show off just different things that are of interest to me. So I started accumulating stuff and buying stuff, and there's little things that you'll end up seeing back here maybe in future videos. And yet that still wasn't enough of a motivation. I tried little things like giving myself a little carrot. Hey, if you do this, then you'll get a reward and you get to do this. If you put the shelf together, you can do this. Hey, you really want to order that particular favorite dessert or meal, or binge watch your favorite show, but before you can do that, you have to do this. And it never quite seemed to be enough to get me over that hurdle. If you're like me and you're also a person that's a great starter but not necessarily a great finisher, or maybe you do have issues with procrastination that you're trying to overcome, like myself on a regular basis, I could probably think back to dozens of examples of other areas of my life where this was a similar type of scenario. This YouTube channel was actually one of those. I have a very long list of videos that I want to make under this new YouTube channel, and yet this is my first one. Funny enough, I'm actually making this at 10 to 9 and in the morning, because again, I wanted to overcome that procrastination, not wait until later in the day when things might snowball and other distractions come up and I'm not able to get the video done yet again. So instead, I just sat down and said, let's just crank it out. Even if it's just a rough draft, or first draft of the video, at least I'll have something and have made some progress towards my goal. Of course, I do have to cut this short because I have a work meeting here that's going to distract me in here just a few minutes in the world of Zoom that we live in, of course. One of the things I learned as I finished up this shelf last night was, one, it was just great to be able to say, hey, I made that. Even if there's some imperfections, there's some flaws, there's some things that I probably could have done it more efficiently, I could have done it faster, I could have done it better. Done is still better than perfect. And I think that's one of the things that procrastinators in particular have to be mindful of, is that Sometimes we're so bogged down in the minutia of the project or concerned about the outcomes of that project that we never get started in the first place. And sometimes that, that quagmire of being in your own brain or pre-planning or trying to think of every scenario that might play itself out. I've heard it called this once. This was the phrase I was trying to search for. Analysis of paralysis. No, I got that backwards. Paralysis of analysis. So you're so paralyzed by analyzing all the details. And some of that goes hand in hand with your personality type and if you're a detail-oriented person as well. But done is still better than perfect. You can always adapt and change, do it better next time, learn from those experiences, but get the project done. Move on to the next one. I actually learned this little tip from a YouTube video I was watching the other night. This concept of or goals versus and goals. It's actually discussed in a book called Get It Done, Surprising Lessons from the Science of Motivation. I personally have not read the book, but this YouTuber had actually read the book and was talking about this idea of, hey, I can either set an or goal or an and goal. Sometimes we start thinking about the long list of things we have to do. I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, the and and the and and the and. And before long, we're so overwhelmed with all of the ands that we never get anything actually done. So the idea of an or goal instead is, okay, I either have to do this or this. And you have to pick one of the two. By picking one of the two, you at least get something done. So it's actually one of the things I did last night. I said, okay, I either have to do laundry, my most hated thing in all of life, by the way, or I have to put the shelf together. Well, the shelf got put together and there's a big pile of laundry in the other room. So that gives you an indication of what exactly I did last night. So I wanted to leave you with a few last book recommendations. I actually have these on the shelf and probably should have grabbed them, but a few books that I think would be beneficial to you to read when it comes to time management, procrastination, goal setting, things that all align to the content of this particular video. Number one is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Fantastic book. You probably have seen a lot of people recommend it for good reason. You've probably seen it on the shelf in other people's videos. It's a great backdrop because a lot of people recommend it and swear by the book. I've only read about a quarter of it so far, so that's not a procrastination thing. It's more of a pile of books thing. So going back to the and or maybe I need to start doing that with my reading too. Another one called The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Another fantastic book. I actually have read that one, and it is a really great book and something that's kind of a constant mantra in my head as far as what's the one thing I can do to move things forward? What's the one thing I can do to start the ball rolling? What's the one thing I can do right now to get things going? What's the one thing that's the biggest priority, the number one task I have to get completed today? Another one is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. That's, of course, a classic. Everybody probably knows that book, and many of you have probably read that one. And a book that I read years ago that I need to pull back off the shelf and read again, but a book called Eat That Frog, 21 Great Ways to Stop Procrastinating and Get More Done in Less Time by a fantastic author called Brian Tracy. So with that, we're going to end this video, but check out my other videos on this topic. I'm actually going to do a couple of other videos around this same topic. In the next video, we're actually going to talk a little bit about some famous individuals and if they were starters or finishers, and just this concept of being a starter and being a finisher, and what are some of the unique attributes of each of those two things. So with that, thanks for stopping by. Please leave a comment if you're a procrastinator or if you figured out ways that you have been able to overcome procrastination in your life. I'd love to hear some of your comments below. Any book recommendations are always welcome below, and we'll see you next time.